Hey guys, welcome back to my channel Ready Steady Study, which is catered for your better future. So guys, this is the new video and it's going to be an interesting video, so let's proceed. In this video, I'm going to feature English subject and this is going to be English session 1. So we're going to take up the chapter number 1 of English literature. So that chapter name is going to be 3 Questions, which is written by Leo Tolstoy. So 3 Questions is a very interesting lesson. As you can see, the title itself is very interesting and catching the appearance of the readers, and so it's going to be very interesting. Let's proceed further, guys. So guys, this is the first chapter and let's begin reading. So a king has 3 questions and he is seeking answers to them. What are the questions? Does the king get what he wants? So let's learn, okay? So it's very intriguing chapter, right? So you have to know what the king wants and what are the 3 questions. So let's proceed. 3 questions. The thought came to a certain thing that he would never fail if he knew 3 things. These 3 things were: what is the right time to begin something? Which people should he listen to? What is the most important thing for him to do? The king therefore sent messengers throughout his kingdom promising a large sum of money to anyone who would answer these 3 questions. Many wise men came to the king, but they all answered his questions differently. So, these were the 3 questions, okay, the king had. In reply to the first question, some said the king must prepare a timetable and then follow it strictly. So what was the first question? What is the right time to begin something? So some said, he must prepare a timetable and follow it strictly. Only in this way, they said, could he do everything at its proper time. So others said that it was impossible to decide in advance the right time for doing something, So it's the future, right? It was impossible for anyone to decide the right time. And the king should notice all that was going on, avoid foolish pleasures, and always do whatever seemed necessary at that time. So many said, he should do everything at the present and he should do whatever seemed necessary at that time. Yet others said that the king needed a council of wise men who would help him act at the proper time. So what is a council? A council is a group of people chosen to give advice or to make rules. So, some others said he needed a council of wise men who would help him act at the proper time. This was because one man would find it impossible to decide correctly without help from others the right time for every action. Yes? So that was true, right? But then others said that there were some things which could be urgent, these things couldn't wait for the decision of the council. In order to decide the right time for doing something, it is necessary to look into the future. And only magicians could do that. The king therefore would have to go to the magicians, guys. So they said the king would have to go to the magicians, right? Now, in their answers to the second question, which was, who are the most important people for the king? Some said that the people most necessary to the king were his counselors, members of the council, because that would help the king act at the right time with the right decisions, right? So that's why counselors. Others said the priests. They said priest because that the priest would help the king to make good prayers, like make worthful prayers, And a few others chose the doctors. See, if the king, if he had gone to war and he came back with fatal wounds, so the doctors would be the one who was, saving the king, right? So doctors were the most important. And yet others said that the soldiers were the most necessary. Why soldiers? Because soldiers, the king needs to protect his kingdom, right? So soldiers would help him to fight. That's why soldiers were important. To the third question, which was what was the most important thing for him to do? Some said science. By science, he can become a very wiseful king and he would be known as a very wise king, right? Others chose fighting. Fighting is the most important thing for a king to do, to protect his kingdom, to protect his subjects and everything, yes? And yet others chose religious work. So others chose religious worship because it would be another important thing for him to do. Okay.
Now, as the answers to his questions were so different, the king was not satisfied and gave no reward. Instead, he decided to seek the advice of a certain hermit who was widely known for his wisdom. So, who is a hermit? A hermit is a person who lives alone and leads a simple life. Okay, so he's a simple person who lives alone and leads a simple life. So he wanted to seek the advice of a certain hermit who was widely known for his wisdom. The hermit lived in a wood. So a wood means a small forest, which he never left. He saw no one but simple people. And so the king put on ordinary clothes. So if they ask why did the king put on ordinary clothes, it's because hermit saw no one but simple people, and so the king put on ordinary clothes. So before he reached the hermit's hut, the king left his horse with his bodyguard and went on alone. Okay, as the king came near the hermit's hut, he saw the hermit digging the ground in front of his hut. So the hermit was digging the ground in front of his hut when he came there, and he greeted the king and continued digging. The hermit was old and weak. As he worked, he breathed heavily. So as he was old and weak, he was breathing very heavily while he was digging. So the king went up to the hermit and said, I have come to you, wise hermit, to ask you to answer these 3 questions. So what is the 3 questions? How can I learn to do the right thing at the right time? Who are the people I need most? And what affairs are the most important? Affairs mean things, matters, or business. Okay. So these were the 3 questions he asked to the hermit. Okay. So the hermit listened to the king but did not speak. He went on digging. You are tired, said the king. Let me take the spade and work in your place. Thanks, said the hermit, giving the king his spade. Then he sat down on the ground. So here's a picture. So this is a picture of this is a king and this is the hermit, as you can see. Okay, now. When the king had dug 2 beds, so 2 beds means the small patches of ground for plants. You can see the word meanings here. Okay. Now, when the king had dug 2 beds, he stopped and repeated his questions. The hermit gave no answer but stood up, stretching out his hand for the spade and said, Now you rest and let me work. So the hermit didn't even care and he just stood up, he stretched his hand and he asked the king to give the spade and let him work. But the king did not give him the spade and continued to dig. 1 hour passed, then another. The sun went down behind the trees, and at last the king stuck the spade into the ground and said, I came to you, wise men, for an answer to my questions. If you can give me no answer, tell me so and I will return home. So, 1 hour passed and another, and the sun went down behind the trees, which means it was already becoming eve, right? So at last the king was very angry and he stuck the spade into the ground and said, this depicts that he was very angry. So he said, I came to you, wise men, for an answer to my questions. If you can give me no answer, tell me so and I'll return home. So he asked him, if you can't give me, just tell me so and I'll return home. So here comes someone running, said the hermit. So this is a pause for the chapter now, or the lesson. So let's do the comprehension check. So here's the comprehension check. Now let's see this. Okay. Yeah, do you wanna do this? Yes, let's continue. Now, why did the king want to know answers to the 3 questions? So that's the first question. So why did the king want to know the answers? Okay, now the second question. Messengers were sent throughout the kingdom. So these are the MCQ questions. Let's look. To fetch wise men. So messengers were sent through the kingdom to fetch wise men. Or to find answers to the questions. Or to look for the wise hermit. Or to announce a reward for those who could answer these questions. Answer the questions. Mark your choice. So this is the questions. Okay, this is the comprehension check 1. So this is the first question and this is the second question. Why did the king want to know the answers? And the messengers were sent through the kingdom for what? You need to mark the answers. Now here comes a cheat sheet. So a cheat sheet is nothing but an answer sheet, okay? So this is the solution. The king wanted to know the answers to 3 questions because of the thought came to his mind that he would never fail if he knew answers to these 3 questions. So he wanted to know the answers because the thought came to his mind that he would never fail if he knew answers to these 3 questions. So he didn't want it to fail himself. Okay. So that is why he wanted to know the answers. Now second one. Why were the messengers sent, why? To announce a reward for those who could answer the questions. Yes, this is the correct option. So, if you read the first paragraph very, precisely comprehending it, you'll understand that the messengers were sent to announce a reward for those who could answer the questions, guys. So, let's proceed to the literature back again and let's continue the story. The king turned round and saw a bearded man running towards them. His hands were pressed against his stomach, from which blood was flowing. When he reached the king, he fainted and fell to the ground. The king and the hermit. Now, so the king turned around when the hermit said, "Here comes a running man." And he saw a bearded man running towards them. So his hands were pressed against his stomach, and from where the blood was flowing. So when he reached the place where the king and the hermit were standing near the hut, he fainted and fell to the ground. What is fainted? Lost consciousness. Okay. So lost consciousness means he won't know what just happened, or he would have no consciousness. Okay, that time. So then the king and the hermit removed the man's clothing and found a large wound in his stomach. The king washed and covered it with his handkerchief, but the blood would not stop flowing. So the king washed it and covered it with his handkerchief, but the blood would not stop flowing. The king redressed the wound until at last the bleeding stopped. So redress means dressed again the wound, okay? Now, the man felt better and asked for something to drink. So the king brought fresh water and gave it to him. By this time, the sun had set and the air was cool. By the time after, dressing the wound and getting him fresh water, the sun had set and the air was cool. The king, with the hermit's help, carried the wounded man means the bearded man, into the hut and laid him on the bed. So the man closed his eyes and lay quiet. The king, tired by his work and the work he had done, he dug two patches of land for the hermit. So that's why he was very tired. He lay down on the floor and slept through the night. So he slept in the hermit's hut through the night. When he awoke, it was several minutes before he could remember. So this is a picture of the king and the hermit trying to, dress this man's wound. So when he woke, he didn't remember where he was or who the strange bearded man lying on the bed was. "Forgive me," said the bearded man in a weak voice when he saw that the king was awake. So the bearded man said, "Forgive me," for the king in a weak voice. "I do not know you and have nothing to forgive you for," said the king. So he's like, "I don't know you. What will I forgive you for?" So he said, "You do not know me, but I know you. I am that enemy of yours who swore revenge on you because you put my brother to death and seized my property." So he's the enemy of the king who swore revenge on the king, yeah. And because he swore revenge because this king put his brother to death and he seized the bearded man's property. Okay. "I knew you had gone alone to see that hermit, and I made up my mind to kill you on your way home." So he was like, "Yeah, I knew you would come here. I knew you would come to the hermit, so I made up my mind. I planned to kill you on your way home. But the day passed and you did not return. So I left my hiding place and I came upon your bodyguard, who recognized me and wounded me." So he was like, he still hasn't come. So he left his hiding place and he came upon the king's bodyguard, who recognized him and wounded him.
So I escaped from him, but I should have died if you had not dressed my wounds. So the enemy of the king escaped from the king's bodyguard, but he should have died, no, if the king had not dressed his wounds. So I wish to kill you, and you have saved my life. Now, if I live, I will serve you as your most faithful servant, and will order my sons to do the same. Forgive me, said the enemy of the king. So he's like, my God, I tried to kill you, but you have saved my life. So if I live now, I will be a loyal, faithful, meaning is here, loyal and a true servant for you, and I will order my sons to do the same. Forgive me. So, children, if they ask what is the irony of the story, you guys should say that, even when the enemy of the king tried to, wanted to kill the king saved him. So, irony matlab opposite hota hai, okay? So, it's like opposite of the thing, what he wanted to do, okay? So, he wanted to kill the king, but the king saved his life, yeah? So, that is the irony. Now, the king was very happy to have made peace with his enemy so easily, and to have won him over as a friend. So he was very happy to make peace with him, and he won him over as a friend. He not only forgave him, but said he would send his servants and his own doctor to look after him. So he's like, I forgive you, and I will send my own doctors and servants to look after you. And he promised to give back the man his property. So he promised, like, I'll give back your property, don't worry. So leaving the wounded man, the king went out of the hut and looked around for the hermit. So he went out of the hut and looked around for the hermit. Before going away, he wished once more to get answers to his questions. The hermit was on his knees sowing seeds in the beds that had been dug the day before. So, when he came outside, he saw the hermit sowing the seeds in the beds that had been dug by the king. He dug the beds. So he was sowing seeds in that. Now the king went up to the hermit and said, for the last time, I beg you to answer my questions, wise man. So he's like, please, for the last time, can you answer my questions? So, you have already been answered, said the hermit, still bending down to the ground and looking up at the king as he stood before him. So he's like, you've already been answered now. So he's like, how have I been answered? What do you mean? Said the king. Do you not see? Replied the hermit. If you had not pitied my weakness yesterday and had not dug those beds for me, you would have gone away. Then that man would have attacked you, and you would have wished that you had stayed with me. So the most important time was when you were digging the beds. And I was the most important man, and to do me good was your most important business. So he said, yesterday you pitied my weakness and you dug those beds for me. If you had not done so, you would have been dead or attacked by the man. And so you would have wished that you had stayed with me, right? So the most important time was when you were digging the beds for me. And I was the most important man, and to do good for me was the most important business. Afterwards, when the man ran to us, the most important time was when you were caring for him, because if you had not dressed his wounds, he would have died without having made peace with you. So he was the most important man, and what you did for him was your most important business. So he said, and afterwards when the bearded man ran to us, the most important time was when you were dressing his wounds and you were so caring, yeah? So that was the most important time, because if he didn't do so, he would have died without me having made peace with him, right? So yeah, he was the most important, the bearded man was the most important man to the king, and what, he dressed his wounds and did all that was the most important business of the king. Now, he said, remember then, there is only one time that is important, and that time is now. It is the most important time because it is the only time we have any power to act, said the hermit. So he's like, there is only one important time, and that time is now, the present. So, it is important because it is the only time we have any power to act, right? We don't have any power to act in the past or in the future. So, it's only present. Now, the most necessary person is the person you are with at a particular moment, for no one knows what will happen in the future and whether we will meet anyone else. So, the most important person is the person who you're engaging with or interacting with right at the moment. Because, you don't know what's going to happen in the future or who you're going to meet else, yeah? And the most important business is to do that person good.
because we were sent into this world for that purpose alone. So he said the most important business for you is to do that person good. You know, because we were sent into this world for that purpose alone. For which purpose? For, you know, doing good for the person we are engaging with right now. Okay. So this is the whole story, guys, and this story was told by Leo Tolstoy. Yeah. Now, comprehension check. Yay, let's go for it. So guys, we finished our chapter. Now let's do a bit of an exercise. So this is comprehension check again. So this is activity number 2. This suggests that complete the following sentences by adding the appropriate parts of the sentences given in the box. Okay, so this is the heading of the exercise. Okay, so we need to complete the sentences by adding appropriate parts of the sentences which is given in the box. Okay, yeah. So these are the questions 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Many wise men answered the king's question dash. So we need to complete this. Someone suggested that there should be a council of wise men dash. Someone else suggested that the king should have a timetable dash. The king requested the hermit dash. The king washed and dressed the bearded man's wound dash. Okay, so these are the first part of the sentences, and let's see the second part. So the second part, but the bleeding would not stop to answer 3 questions, but their answers were so varied that the king was not satisfied and followed strictly to help the king act at the right time. So let's see it again. So many wise men answered the king's question for okay. So many wise men answered the king's questions, but their answers were so varied that the king was not satisfied. Yeah, okay, fine. Someone suggested that there should be a council of wise men to help the king act at the right time. Yes, okay. So now someone else suggested that the king should have a timetable and follow it strictly. Okay, it matches. The king requested the hermit to answer 3 questions. Yes, matches. Yeah, it matches. The king washed and dressed a bearded man's wound, but the bleeding would not stop. Yay, we finished this. And this is the answer. So many wise men answered the king's questions, but their answers were so varied that the king was not satisfied. Someone suggested that there should be a council of wise men to help the king act at the right time. Someone else suggested that the king should have a timetable and follow it strictly. The king requested the hermit to answer the 3 questions. The king washed and dressed a bearded man's wound, but the bleeding would not stop. Okay, so these are the answers, guys. So guys, yes, we finished the whole chapter today. So yes, it was a very interesting session, right? So we finished the chapter, we read the chapter, we comprehended the chapter, we understood the chapter. So yes, and now what your part is to like, share and subscribe, guys. You know, you can like this video and you can support us for bringing up more content on our channel, and you can share this video for everyone and for your dear ones, you know, for whom this content will be very useful. And subscribe to this channel for your better and a bright future. Yes, so you have to subscribe to this channel for your better and a very, very bright future, guys. Yeah, now thank you for watching. Keep watching Ready Steady Study. So keep watching Ready Steady Study, guys. Yeah, so keep watching Ready Steady Study for more and for your better future, guys. So this is Ready Steady Study signing off today's session. Thank you all for watching and thank you all for your love and support. Thank you, guys. See you in the next class.